y'all notice on the handout, I want you to look at the word undisciplined and the word discipline. Y'all see that on your handout? On page 88 in the book, that's where we're going to start off with. We're going to start off with the power of choice, and we're going to talk about discipline. I mean, y'all believe it, all coaches believe in discipline. If they didn't, they wouldn't be a coach very long, would they? On page 88, it says it works. It really does. And let me tell you what it is. It is discipline. And it is also a choice. Because the next line says, we are undisciplined. Y'all see that? So we let God, that's a choice, isn't it? Discipline us in a simple way we've just outlined. And a lot of people don't like the word discipline because it seems like it's about punishment. But in the context, this is about growing into maturity. So they just outlined a little simple way for us to be disciplined. Let's back up to 84 and let's look at the outline just for a little bit. 84 through 88. And I want y'all to think about this thought. It's not what I did, it's what I didn't do. And for a long time, I chose to be undisciplined. Even though my dad was a disciplinarian, and I had a lot of discipline in my upbringing, which benefited me in my journey called life. But I want y'all to think about this. Your mind is like a garden, and your thoughts are the seeds. Y'all think about that. Think about your thoughts being the seeds. You can plant gardens, but those weeds are going to pop up in that garden. How many of y'all believe that? And if you don't expose the weeds that crop up to the sunlight, so they'll die, they will eventually take over your garden. No matter how well you prepared your ground, and no matter how good a seed you planted in your garden, the weeds are going to crop up. And if we don't take action to get rid of the weeds, then we're not going to get the desired results that we are expecting from the fruits of our labor. And I believe right action is the key to good living. And if you don't take right action, the illustration I use is like waiting at the international airport in Memphis, Tennessee, waiting on a ship to come in. It's not going to happen. So what we want to do in simplicity is we want to continue to take our personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes on a daily basis. Y'all with me? As we cleaned up the past. So let's look at this. And the word continues used 4 times in this one paragraph. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take, what's that next word?
Personal inventory.
Personal. Personal. Instead of taking everybody else's inventory, let's start taking our own. Our game day film. And continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. Now, why do y'all think that's so important? Because if we don't set right the new mistakes, those old mistakes are going to have some new mistakes piled on top of them. We vigorously, that means we got to take some right action, don't it? We vigorously commence this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So what we want to do is start taking our own inventory, setting right any new mistakes that we make on a daily basis as we cleaned up the past so we can grow into maturity. Because we've entered the world of the Spirit. Here's where spiritual awareness kicks in. our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. You know what it's talking about? Growing in understanding and effectiveness of the world of the spirit. The evil nature, the dark nature that's been controlling our lives, versus the good nature or the nature of life that wants to set us free and wants us to have a rich and meaningful, abundant life. This side over here is going to do everything it can to keep us from doing it. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for a lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up in your thought process, according to our literature which is suggested, when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them, which is what I call spiritual weapons of warfare. So we're going to call on the gardener to help us. Then it says, we discuss them with someone immediately. And the reason that's so important, if we don't seek the counsel of the godly, spiritual advisors, then we're going to deprive them of an opportunity to help us. And the person we choose to call may be in a bigger emotional storm than we are. But that will help them get out of their storm and by helping us. Does that make sense? So we deprive ourselves of each other's help a lot of times because we won't ask for somebody else's advice and we go these spiritual matters alone. Then it says we make amends quickly if we've harmed anybody, and I believe if we're selfish, dishonest, resentful, or afraid, we're going to say something or do something that's going to hurt somebody else. And after we do those three, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Now flip over to page 86. Now this is the method of the coaches that changed my life, and I've seen it change so many other people's lives. So I asked y'all in the first session to go back and see how you started your day. What were your thoughts when you woke up? What kind of action did you take when you woke up? And then what'd you do after that? And what'd you do after that? Here's what I try to do every day, and it's a working part of my mind. And if I get interrupted before I do that, I try to always go back to it as soon as I think about it. But it says, on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. And here's where the expectations comes in that we talked about this morning in our morning meditation. How many times did we expect our plans to go the way we had it mapped out and it never went the way we thought it was going to go? And instead of us stopping and pausing and praying and asking for the right thought or the right action, as a rule, if you was anything like me, you got tore up from the floor up instead of getting a checkup from the neck up. Does that make sense? And then we got bent out of shape. We got angry. Our wrath was justified because if it hadn't to happen, I'd have got to do this, and our plans for the day just got destroyed. We started running behind schedule based on our expectations and our plans, which have never gone the way I thought they should have went. As I thought to my way of thinking, I can't remember one day where my plans went exactly the way I thought they should have went. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody needs to make plans. We all need constructive imagination, plans for the future. But we try to determine our steps, one step at a time, 1 second at a time, and do the next right thing, and not get bent out of shape when we get tore up from the floor up, but stop, pause, and pray, and do the serenity prayer or something. Does that make sense? Before we begin considering our plans for today, we ask God to direct our thinking. We especially ask that our thinking be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking, what's that next word? Motives. So how many of us have been eat up with self-pity? Anybody in here besides me? How many of us have been dishonest with ourselves and didn't even know we were being dishonest with ourselves? How many of us have been caught up in the what about meism instead of how can I help somebody else? How many of us get wrapped up in our little plans, our little house, our little job, our little car, our little world? How many of y'all believe it's much bigger than we can see? Our circle of influence. Much bigger, more effective than anything we can see, I believe. Here's how long it takes to do this. God, we ask you to direct my thinking. I ask you to direct my thinking. And I ask that you divorce my thinking from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. It takes about 10 or 12 seconds to say that prayer. But we have to get in the habit of doing it. And if you're not in the habit of doing it, ask God to help you get in the habit of doing it. That's helped me many, many times. It says under these conditions we can employ our mental faculties with assurance. That's our faith in our prayer. After all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is clear of wrong motive. And God wants our thought life to be on the plane of inspiration. The dark side don't want us to be inspired. He wants us to go down and drift off into worry and remorse and morbid reflections. Does that make sense? In thinking about our day, we may face indecisions. How many of y'all already faced some indecision? Some of y'all decided when you was going to get up out of bed, and when you decided you was going to lay there for a little bit longer. We had to make a decision whether we were going to eat breakfast or not. All kind of decisions we make on a daily basis. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, weapons of warfare, power of prayer. We ask for an intuitive thought or a decision. We relax and take it easy or take a few deep breaths is what I try to do. We don't struggle. We often surprised how the right answers come after we've tried this for a while. And what I want to say is, based on my own experience, if you don't try this, if you don't continue to do this, more than likely, the right answers aren't going to come. That's been my experience. When I first got sober, I bought my brothers and my sister one of these books, and I encouraged them to practice 86, 87, and 88. And two of them's testimony was, especially my younger brother, that's got 15 plus years, he said, when I tried what was on 86, 87, and 88, my life started getting better and better and better and better. And then the temptation to slack off would win out. And I would start regressing instead of going forward. And the next thing you know, I got holes in my pocket again. That was the way he put it. So, in our game day activities, my personal deal is go to the locker room as soon as I wake up so I can get my uniform on. So I can get prepared for game day. And I do that by practicing what we're talking about right here. So at the bottom of 87, this is a big deal that's changed my life. This is game day activities, okay? words, actions, and thoughts. As we go through the day, we pause when agitated, which is going to come from a thought, or doubt. How many of y'all been agitated today, or how many of y'all been doubtful today? What I try to do is I try to stop, pause, and pray when agitated or doubtful, so I won't get angry and fearful. So I can cut this side off at the pass by dealing with my agitation and doubt, so it won't turn into anger. As for the right thought or the right action, so the implication is if I'm agitated or doubtful, I'm not thinking right and I'm thinking to do something stupid. Then the next line is, we constantly remind ourselves we no longer running the show because it's bigger than anything we can see. Humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. I'm going to ask you this. When's the last time those 4 words come out of your mouth? At the end of the 3rd step on page 41 in the 12 and 12, it says, thy will not mine be done. So a lot of times we caught up in our plans instead of his plans for us. Does that make sense? It says we are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. How many of y'all want to become much more efficient? When we enter the world of the Spirit, we start growing in understanding and effectiveness. Look at the next line. We do not tire so easily, for we're not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. It works, it really does. Now, how much energy do you burn up on a daily basis trying to arrange life to suit you? Is that a fair question? And when you quit burning up energy foolishly, trying to arrange life to suit yourself, that wonderful energy that comes from the real power source, just like that electricity that flows through there for us to have the light, that wonderful energy starts flowing through you and you begin to get energized. And you start being energetic. And you start being enthusiastic. And you start getting excited about life. And I wonder what's going to happen next. I wonder what's going to happen next in a positive way. And if something happens in a negative way, we learn how to intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. Does that make sense? So, go back now. We're supposed to be taking our personal inventory. We're supposed to be setting right any new mistakes. We're trying to develop spiritual awareness. This is the paragraph on page 84 to give us some insight on it. In other words, we're trying to see how this nature of evil has been operating inside us and how that nature of evil operates inside people, and we begin to place principles before personalities. And we start seeing how the nature of good, and in reality what we want to do is we want to start starving this side over here. And we want to start feeding this side over here. Instead of feeding this side over here, our anger and our discouragement and our self-justification, our grudges, our resentment, our self-pity. How long y'all been feeding these companions? Are you aware that they are companions of the nature of darkness? Because if you got a grudge, it represents a spirit of unforgiveness. If you got a resentment, it represents a spirit of unforgiveness. And what happens is, if you got a resentment toward a family member, regardless of what they did or what they said, or a friend or society, that nature of darkness, this is what I believe, has got you shackled to whoever or whatever you resent, even if it's yourself. Now that don't sound good, does it? Any of y'all ever been shackled? That didn't feel good, did it? If you hadn't, and if you keep on doing what you've always done before you got here, you might find out what it's like. But how many of us have even thought about being shackled in the realm of the spirit by the power of darkness because we were unwilling to forgive? And what I believe, for your consideration, I believe that forgiveness is not an option after I see what I'm able to see today, unless I want this power over here to have power and dominion over here, or this nature over here to have power and dominion over me. And that don't even sound good at all, does it? That's not very attractive. So what we want to do is we want to break those chains of bondage and get set free on the inside. And then we want to show and tell other people how we got free with our actions and our words. And notice what I said: show and tell, actions and words, instead of tell and show, words and actions. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So many times we want to tell people right off the bat how we've changed instead of showing them, and they still are skeptical because of what they've seen us do over the years past. Now go to page 93 in the 12 and 12. This is about the spiritual ledger. This is also on your handout. When evening comes, this is still the method of the coaches. Perhaps just before going to sleep, many of us draw up a balance sheet for the day. And what that is, that's a spiritual balance sheet about your emotions. Healthy, unhealthy. This is a good place to remember that inventory taking is not always done in red ink. It is a poor day indeed when we haven't done something right. As a matter of fact, the waking hours are usually filled with good things that are constructive. Y'all hang on to that word, constructive. Not destructive, but constructive. When we do something constructive, that means we're building something. When we doing something destructive, that means we're tearing down something. That make sense? Good intentions, good thoughts, and good acts are there for us to see. This next line is one of my favorite lines in this literature. Even when we've tried hard and failed, we can chalk that up as one of the greatest credits of all. So what that really means is, if you look at your handout, where it says, lessons learned today. Y'all see that? Right up above human and spiritual point of view. Lessons learned today can be carried over into tomorrow. Even when we've tried hard and failed, we can chalk that up as one of the greatest credits of all. You know what that means? We're going to start making deposits in this side over here, on the right side. We start making deposits over here by trying hard. Emphasize the word trying hard and failing. It's better to aim high and fall short than to aim low and hit. You understand what I just said? So we're going to fall short of perfection every day. But we look at it as learning experiences, spiritual workouts, if you got the right attitude. Does that make sense? Under these conditions, the pains of failure are converted into assets. Out of them, we receive the stimulation we need to go forward. So our assets are going to make us want to strive for better things. Someone who knew what he was talking about once remarked that pain was the touchstone of all spiritual progress. How hardly we can agree with him, for we know that the pains of drinking had to come before sobriety, and we know emotional turmoil had to come before serenity. Now here's the debit side of the spiritual ledger. We got the debits over here that we want to decrease. We got the credits over here that we want to increase. But the truth of the matter is, this side over here is either going to increase or decrease, and this side over here is going to either increase or decrease. One or the other, depending on what we're feeding our mind and how we look at things. Does that make sense? As we glance down the debit side of today's ledger, we should carefully examine our, what's that next word? Motives. Motives. What did we get specific about on page 86? Did we get specific about our motives? As we glance down the debit side of today's ledger, we should carefully examine our motives in each thought or each act that appears to be wrong. Now look at this. Now look at this next statement. In most cases, our motives won't be hard to see and understand. But I'm telling you, if you're not looking for them, if you're not checking your motives in each thought or each action, you're not going to be able to see it, and you're not going to be able to understand it. And motives can help you differentiate between the truth and the false, and help you develop a discerning spirit, whether you got a black heart or a pure heart. Does that make sense? When, y'all see that word when prideful, when angry, when jealous, when anxious, when fearful, we acted accordingly, and that was that. Isn't that the way we act? That's just the way I am. You don't like it, you take a hike. And then the next statement says, here we need to only recognize, which is spiritual awareness, that we did act or think badly, try to visualize, review your film, how we might have done better and carry these lessons over into tomorrow, making, of course, any amends still neglected. Now jump over to the top of page 95 for time's sake, where it says learning daily. Y'all see that? That's really on your handout. Learning daily to spot. That's where the self-searching and the self-examination comes in. Learning daily to admit. That's where the honesty comes in. And learning daily to correct. That's where the discipline comes in. Y'all with me? These flaws is the essence of character building and good living. And honest regret for harm done. I'm telling you, if I say anything or do anything today that has harmed you in any kind of way, or anybody else, I'm going to try to make it right, because I don't want to hurt nobody else no more from this day forward. An honest regret, harm done, a genuine gratitude for blessings received, and a willingness to, this is one of my favorite lines too, a willingness to try for better things tomorrow. How many of us are willing to try for better things tomorrow? That's how we grow into maturity. Will be the permanent assets we shall seek. So you got to ask yourself what you've been seeking. Who have you been seeking? Having so considered our day, not omitting to take due note of things well done, and having searched our heart with neither fear nor favor, we can truly thank God for the blessings we have received and sleep in good conscience. And a clear conscience makes a soft pillow, but just because my conscience is clear, that don't make me innocent. Y'all understand what I'm talking about? So I'm going to go back to 86 in the big book. first full paragraph. Methods of the coaches. When we retire at night, y'all see that? We constructively review our day. Were we resentful today? Were we selfish today? Were we dishonest today? Were we afraid today? Y'all see how valuable it is to review your film today? Do we owe an apology today? Have we kept something to ourselves that should be discussed with another person at once today? Were we kind and loving toward all? The next question is, what could we have done better? Isn't that a good question? Don't y'all think this is a powerful method? Y'all ever heard that song, it's not what I did, it's what I didn't do? You know what I see people do, my experience? The people don't do what's been suggested this morning. They go back out and do something they don't want to do. But the people that do what we have described or laid out, this outline, as a rule, they don't go back out there. People that get up in the morning and ask God to direct their thinking and get real specific with God about their motives. People that learn how to stop, pause, and pray throughout the course of the day, when they get agitated or doubtful, and ask God for the right thought or the action, and constantly remind themselves they're no longer running the show, humbly saying to themselves many times these days, I will be done. I've never seen anybody that was practicing that on a daily basis to go back up. But I've seen so many people go back out there because of what they didn't do. How many of y'all been in treatment before and this was offered to you and you rejected it? And so you did what you did because of what you didn't do. Can we accept that? So let's don't let the temptation to slack off win out. Let's grow. Let's go to page 124 in the big book. We'll try to close this down. On page 124 in the big book, it says, Henry Ford once made a wise remark. Y'all see that? To the effect that experience is a thing of supreme value in life, that's true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Are you willing to turn your past to good account and start making some deposits over here so you can bring something healthy to the table? It says we grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. Now if we convert all our errors or all my mistakes into assets, how many assets will we have? Countless. 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 Now if y'all will, y'all go back to the handout. We're going to close out on page 164 in the big book, in case any of y'all want to go there and turn your book over or whatever. I want y'all to look at the right side of the tree of destruction and the left side of the tree of life. Now the nature of darkness wants us to be discouraged, afraid, and full of fear. On the right side, the nature of light wants us to trust in Him. What it says on page 68 and page 98 in the big book. Wants us to have faith in Him, quality faith versus quantity faith, 12 and 12, page 32. It wants us to have peace. go up the ladder where it says anger and prayer. There's a little prayer on page 67 in the big book. It says, God save me from being angry, thy will be done. And I believe that's a very healthy prayer, because I believe that human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires for us. But I believe that human anger produces the unrighteousness that the nature of evil desires for us. So God save me from being angry, thy will be done. Our anger going up the ladder is always justified, isn't it? Instead of us showing somebody else some grace or some compassion and some humility, we develop a grudge, go up the ladder. Instead of showing them mercy and forgiveness, we start feeding and petting and nurturing that grudge. Y'all see where I'm at? And so that grudge turns into a resentment. And forgiveness is the counter. Then we start feeling sorry for ourselves instead of being grateful for what we've been brought through and what we got. We start feeling sorry for ourselves because of what we've lost or what we don't have. And then that loneliness settles in. Instead of having a sense of belonging, we go to those sordid places and start trying to find some companionship there. Going up the ladder, we get depressed instead of being content with what I got, what we have. And we defy the power of God instead of relying upon the power of God. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go to, we're not going to go to page 164. We want to go to page 99 in the 12 and 12. This is how we're going to close our meeting now. How many of y'all ready to play ball? How many of y'all ready to get in the game? One day, I thought about this old man named, I read this in a book about a man named Isaiah that had a dialogue with God going on. So Isaiah's lips got purified, and God asked old Isaiah a question. He said, who shall I send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah said, here I am, God, send me. My buddy killed himself years ago, and I went to the funeral, and I saw his young daughter standing there. I went in the funeral home, and I heard that little young daughter of his crying, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And I looked in the chapel and I looked down the aisle and I saw that little girl and somebody standing beside her on her left side in front of that horizontal box with all those childhood memories behind us. And I can tell you what I said, here I am, God, send me. Let me go. Let me bring. Y'all understand what I'm saying? And I've had that attitude ever since. And what that does, it makes me want to do more. But I began to develop a hatred for this side over here, and a love for this side over here. And I love the vessel that this side has been controlling. But God's given us some insight so that nature don't have to control us no more. This one right here can. That makes sense? So in the 11-step prayer, it says, Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. Y'all see that? Well, here's what I want y'all to do with your handout. On the left side of your handout, put your thumb under hatred and put your thumb under love. And we're going to do this prayer with this handout. Does that sound good? And what I want y'all to do, if you will, is repeat this prayer after me off of this handout. Because a lot of times you're not going to have this book with you, but you can have this handout with you because I take it with me everywhere I go. And I'm just looking for an opportunity to share it with somebody. I'm going to encourage y'all to do the same thing. And here's what I want you to do, if y'all will, repeat it after me. I'm gonna say some words, and anybody that's willing to repeat what I say after me. How many of y'all ready to play ball? Put me in the game, coach. Put me in the game, coach. Here I am, God, send me. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. That where there is hatred, I may bring love. That where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness. That where there is discord, I may bring harmony. That where there is error, I may bring truth. That where there is doubt, I may bring faith. That where there is despair, I may bring hope. That where there is shadows, I may bring light. That where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Here I am, God. Send me. God bless you, y'all.
God bless you.